Steve have faced. Do you still have faith in Tim as the leader? And what are your impressions of what went on? You know, given you've worked so hard to turn around the team culture.
I have faith in Tim Paine. You have no idea how much faith I got in Tim Paine. He didn't have his best day, no doubt about that. But after 3 years, he has hardly put a hair out of place. He has been outstanding as the Australian captain in everything he does. He had a frustrating day. We've got to cut him some slack, surely. But having said that, when you set a standard as high as he does and as we do, we understand we're going to get criticised when we fall below that. It's not what we're about. But Tim Paine, mate, outstanding leader, and will continue to be for some time to come yet. So he has my 100% support. As for Steve Smith, I literally cannot believe some of the rubbish I read about Steve Smith. Absolute load of rubbish. I mean, if anyone who knows Steve Smith, he's a bit quirky and he does some weird, and we've all laughed about it for the last couple of years, and I've spoken about it publicly and I've spoken about it privately about how he's a bit quirky. It's what Steve Smith does at the crease. He does it probably most games. He's just thinking about the game. Anyone who suggests for 1 millisecond he was trying to do something untoward, they're way out of line. Absolutely out of line. I mean, on that wicket was that flat and it was like concrete. You need 15-inch spikes to make an indent on the crease, and he went nowhere near the crease. So seriously, mate, seriously, I thought that was absolutely ludicrous. And again, in the last couple of years since he's been back, he has been exemplary on and off the field. He's let his bat do the talking. He was abused like I've never seen anything through England, and he just kept smiling and giving his bat do the talking. Like, give me a break. Give me a break.
Thanks, Justin.
We'll go to Karan. Karan?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Langer. Do you think that India is at a stage where, they are kind of unnerving the Australians, something like South Africa in the past used to do? If you go back 10 years, 12 years back, India toured Australia in 2007-8, and everything, even though they performed very well, but Australia would come up with moments like Michael Clarke picking 3 wickets in the last over, then Brad Hogg coming up with all-round performance at crucial stages. But a year later, South Africa, JP Duminy, Australia would get stuck with JP Duminy. So do you think that India has reached a stage where they're kind of unnerving Australia, where even those Hanuma Vihari performance, Ravichandran Ashwin are seeing them off?
Oh, look, I don't think that we're getting unnerved. I think culturally we're very different the way we play the game, and that's okay. We expect that. But no, I think it's been a good contest. What I love about is that Test cricket's on the map, isn't it? I mean, I say it every year when people start talking about the demise of Test cricket. I look at it and go, it's another example of people are talking about cricket because of Test cricket. I mean, it's a great contest. It's the two best teams in world cricket at the moment going at it. It's brilliant. It's been an arm wrestle since the first Test match. And Test cricket it is, people do get under each other's skin, don't they? Whether it's, and that's what great Test cricket's all about. So I've thought from the start, this series is going to be the survival of the fittest, mentally and physically. And we're seeing that. So it comes down to the last Test match in Brisbane. It's mouth-watering, isn't it, for Test cricket, that the two best teams are going at it, and one of us has to win to retain or take back the Border Gavaskar Trophy. So it's Test cricket at its best, and I'm loving every minute of the contest, as are our players. The distractions are just part of the theatre and the drama of Test cricket. It is now, and it always has been, as long as I've been around anyway.
Josh McLean.
Good morning, Justin. I feel like this is right up your alley. Maybe a couple of the players copped a bit of some things unfairly, and this could be one of those gutsy, backs to the wall Aussie performances to win a series. Is that the way you're looking at it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, more importantly is that my role, if behind closed doors, if our guys are stepping out of line, we talk about it. We've talked a lot about what happened on that last day, and we already have, and we'll continue to do that. I hope over the last 3 years, we've shown ourselves to be, really good people and sports people on and off the cricket field. So we don't shy away. I mean, the captain got up publicly and put his leadership on the line yesterday and said that's not how we do it, and that takes great courage to do that. So we've shown that, and when it comes to this Test match, again, it's great for Test cricket, isn't it? That we're at the end of the summer, a tough summer with everything that's going on, with all the COVID restrictions that have been and that are coming up, with all these extra distractions. We come down to Brisbane and it's 1-1 in the series. Border Gavaskar Trophy. I mean, how good is that? And our guys, after bowling 120 odd overs in Sydney on a really flat wicket, we've got to get ourselves back up and be ready for this Test match. It's bring it on.
Sam Landsberger.
Just so much talk leading in about what conditions will be like for you guys in Brisbane. Are you able to quickly just paint the picture as to what you can and can't do in the hotel and who you can mingle with and sort of what the setup is like up in Brisbane for you?
It's all good. We're ready to go. It's all fine.
Lachie McCurdy.
Hey, Justin. Obviously, it's a short turnaround to this next test. The bowlers had a heavy working load on day 5 there in Sydney. How have they pulled up after, and is there any thought about resting or rotating any of them for this 4th test?
Look, we'll see how they pull up in the next few days. Today at training and then tomorrow. They're brilliant athletes. They're very, very determined to win this series. So unless they've got any sort of injuries, then we might look at it. But I'd be very surprised if they don't want to play this test. I think about it is tough Test cricket. But look, call me sentimental, but I think about guys like Rick McCosker, Steve Waugh, Alan Border. They've set a pretty high standard for what we expect from our Australian cricketers, and I'd expect they'll all be ready to go for this Test match.
Dan Bredig.
G'day, Justin. Just a question about, I suppose, the last couple of days. And I know that you have, as coach, talked about high standards of behaviour and, culture is behaviour. Do you get a bit of a sense that the world was sort of waiting for a little slip up to say, oh, well, it hasn't actually changed?
Well, it's just a good reminder, isn't it? That if you, I remember a great mate of mine told me a few years ago, if you're going to build a house, or you're going to build a hotel, so it takes years to do it, but it takes about a couple of hours to rip it all down with a bulldozer. So my point is, we've got to be on top of our game all the time. You're right, but we are also, our players are human. We've got to they're in a lot of senses, they're very, very different circumstances how we're living. Have been through England, they've been through IPO, they've been in hubs, all that sort of stuff. But that's okay. We've just got to make sure that we are on top of our game all the time. And that's one of the challenges of leadership. That's one of the challenges of putting yourself out there and talking about culture and how important culture is. You can't slip. And if you do slip, you get criticised for it. And that's okay. That's why. But we hopefully had the courage to say, no, this is what we expect. This is how we're going to behave. So when we don't do it to the standard that we expect to get criticised for it.
Just one about Steve. Did it remind you at all of your little sort of bail tapping habit and the episode in Sri Lanka in 2004?
Yeah, funny you say that. I was talking to, I actually spoke to Steve about it the other day. I mean, I reckon I tapped the bail every single time since I was about 10 years old. It was just a habit. I ran across, tapped the top of the bail. It was almost like a habit or a routine. So it did. And I remember doing an article from I was interviewed here a couple of years ago, and someone brought it up then about whether I was the right person to lead Australia because of what I did in Sri Lanka all those years ago. Again, I nearly fell off my seat. It was the most innocent thing. And so, yeah, I think it does. I mean, like I said with Stevie, I mean, he probably does it every single game, or he does it regularly. and someone, I guess that's the joy of social media, I suppose, and people out there making a living, having to make comments, as commentators. So that's okay. I mean, but as I said, I am absolutely 100% that there was zero in and people can make of it. Well, that's right, having their opinion, but yeah, it did remind me a bit of that.
Thanks, Justin.
Mike Pearsall.
G'day, Justin, mate. Just a quick one on Will Bukowski. What would you rate his chances of recovering in time for the test? And if he is unavailable, is it fair to say Marcus Harris will be straight in?
Yeah, probably looked like that. I know that, look, Will had a sore shoulder before he fell on it. He was actually going to have a scan after that day's play anyway, just to see what was happening. Thought might have a little jab in there, and it might be a bit of bursitis or something. So he was going to have that scan anyway. He fell on it as well. We'll see how he pulls up today. We're really hopeful he'll get up. And if he doesn't, the obvious thing would be that Marcus Harris had come in as the opener.
Rob Forsyth.
Following up on that.
Sorry, Rob. We haven't got you there, mate. We might come back to that.
Not coming through, Rob.
We'll go to 7 News.
Hey, Rob, I'll jump in there, mate. Hey, Justin, you spoke pretty passionately in Steve's defence earlier, mate. I think we might be speaking over the top of each other here, Rob.
Would there be
Okay, guys, we might start that again. We'll try again with 7 News Sydney.
Hey, Justin, you spoke pretty passionately earlier defending Steve and all the talk over the last couple of days. Paine was saying yesterday that he was pretty upset by the coverage. Has he been able to park that yet, moving forward ahead of the Gabba, or is he still pretty pissed off?
No, he'll be fine. I mean, he as I said, he showed great courage to go on the front foot, admit that it wasn't up to his high standards. And now he's a very, very determined young man, Tim Paine. He's very passionate about this team and the direction this team's going. So he'll be very, very up for this contest. And
Smudge too. He's been able to park the kind of criticism of him for the past couple of days.
Yeah, he will. I mean, he's a champion, and champions compartmentalise when it comes to when he gets back into it. He'll start batting again today. I guess his biggest challenge is going to be that he just batted for a long time, the longest he's batted for probably 12 months in the middle. He talked about that pre-test match, and now he's done that. He's going to have to get himself, freshen himself up. That's what, again, he's a champion player, and I'm expecting him to be all ready to go for this test.
Thanks, mate.
We'll go to Andrew Wu.
Yeah, good day, Justin. Just your thoughts on Tim's keeping, the behaviour side aside, but just your thoughts on his keeping this series. Have you felt like, I know he probably wasn't up to his standards in Sydney, but just overall, your thoughts on it?
I think he's been brilliant. I think that the very fact that he missed some catches probably said he was a bit distracted for this test match, and he talked about that yesterday. I thought he batted really well in the second innings, but I think his keeping's outstanding. I mean, he's one of the great wicket keepers we've ever had in Australia. He works very hard on it. He prides himself on it. I think his wicket kept really well throughout this summer.
Thanks.
Raj.
Hi, Justin. India may claim some moral victory after fighting their backsides off at SCG in the last test, but they're also missing Jasprit Bumrah and I think Ravindra Jadeja for the next test match. How much would that impact the contest, you think?
Well, hopefully it impacts it a lot. But I've said this is going to be the survival of the fittest this summer. It's really interesting how many injuries there's been throughout this summer. We saw it. We suffered through it through the white ball series, if you remember, and through the test series. I can't help, and we'll review this, I can't help but think that the IPL this year was in really, probably wasn't ideal timing for anyone, certainly for such a big series like this. I love the IPL. It's a bit, I look at the IPL now like I used to look at county cricket for our young players. They go and play county cricket and it helps their cricket development enormously. I think it's the same with the IPL with our players now. It helps their white ball development. But the timing of it, because of what happened with COVID, probably wasn't ideal. And I just wonder whether that's having an impact on the injuries that we're seeing for both teams throughout the summer. So, I'm sure we'll all review that. And I've said when I was asked at the start of the summer about Virat not being here, if Virat, you take your best players out of any team, whether it's our team or our opponent, of course it's going to have an impact, or it's potentially going to have an impact. So, but Test cricket's, like I keep saying, survival of the fittest, and we can't concentrate on what India are doing. We're just going to concentrate on what we're doing to make sure we're up for this contest.
If I could just ask one more, sorry. Is an opponent dangerous when the chips are down?
Say it again.
Is an opponent more dangerous when their chips are down?
Time will tell.
We'll come back to, we'll try to come back to Rob Forsyth.
Fingers crossed. Sorry about that, Justin. Have you got me now?
Yeah, no worries.
I was just wondering with Will, what does he have to do to convince you that he's ready to play? And I suppose also how's David? Is he sort of feeling a little bit better? And does that weigh into the decision at all if you carry two guys in who are not quite 100%?
So I missed the second half of that, mate, for some reason.
How's David going? And does that weigh into the decision at all? Is there any apprehension if there's two openers who are not quite 100%?
No, look, we'll just see. He's a young guy. He's just played his first test, so mentally he's going to be exhausted anyway. After a test match, it's tiring business. So we'll keep an eye on how he pulls up today. He's with shoulders. As long as he can bat, okay, he can catch. It's not as big a deal in Test cricket for us. But we just have to see how. We'll know. We'll probably know by tonight, I reckon, whether he'll be right to go. It's either going to be a quick turnaround and he's back up and into it, or it might be a few weeks. But again, we'll find out. As for Davey, I want to make this really clear that he's an old pro and he's earned the right. And before the test match, we asked him if he was right to go, and we made a collective decision. He was absolutely adamant he was right to go. We saw how he went through it. We knew, I said before the last test match, he's going to have to deal with a little bit of pain because the muscle part of injury has cleared 100%. We had another scan 2 nights ago. And his tendon's going to be sore. I mean, that's what happens with tendon injuries. He's going to be in a bit of pain, but it's 100% his decision to play. We worked together on it, and I'm confident, 100% confident that he's right to go for the test match.
Got another one here from Dan Brady.
Justin, just a sort of a follow-up in terms of what your experiences were in 04. Do you become a bit more conscious of just that area, the crease, the wickets when you're walking through or spending time around that it just is looked at very closely by, fixed or whatever cameras?
Oh, yeah. I guess in a perfect world, it's I guess Dan, I'm not sure what the question is, mate, but
just that after you have an experience like that, or the one that Steve has, do you become as a cricketer just a bit more, I suppose, self-conscious of those areas of the pitch subsequently?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure Smithy will be very conscious of it. Now, something that's probably been absolutely just a routine and him just being in his own little daydreaming world about batting, he'll be more aware of it. As I was after that, I'd probably never touch the top of the bail again. It probably jumped out of my routine, a little reminder. So yeah, I guess that'll be a little reminder. Stevie will probably be a bit more conscious of it next time.
Thank you.
We've got one last one here, guys, from Sam Lansberger.
Hi, Justin. So thanks for your time. Just in regards to like a medical review, sort of what would that look like? Who would you speak to after the series to try and put your finger on sort of, why both teams have lost so many players? And, do you look at how you monitor players throughout the series, or what would that look like in real terms when you try and study what's happened?
Oh, well, we've obviously got some high performance people and the medicos and we said after the 1 day series that we should review it. I mean, if you're having more injuries, or the trend is that you're having more injuries than usual, then of course you've got to review it. So I'm sure we've got Andrew Weller at Cricket Australia. He's on the case at the moment. A lot of these things you could say, well, they're just one-off incidents, but when it becomes a trend, I mean, India and Australia have had more injuries. Some of them are, they've had a broken arm. Shami broke his arm. Ravi broke his thumb the other day. So they're a bit unusual, but the soft tissue injury that we've got to look at. And like I say, I'm sure we'll review that like we do with most things. And we review most things post-series. We look at the positives and the negatives. And when you're getting a lot of injuries, then obviously that'd be a negative that we're going to try and see if there's any answers for. And there might not be, but there might be.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Justin. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today.